Welcome back. So it's with great pleasure that I can introduce to you the next moderator, Thandi Duani. Thandi Duani is passionate about building communities, connecting people and organization, and solving some of the biggest challenges that societies face. For the past 15 years, Thandi have been focusing on development issues, gender, enabling social entrepreneurship, and ecosystem building in Denmark, the Nordics, and Sub-Saharan Africa. And she's been doing that in government institutions, NGOs, and the private sector. As a founder, consultant, philanthropic investment manager, CEO, and lately as a strategic partnership lead for Girls Are Awesome. So with that intro, I will leave the virtual floor to you, Sandy. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here. Hello, everyone. We're super happy that you are tuning into our session here in Copenhagen Global Fintech Week. We have a really interesting panel for you today with 4 amazing fintech stakeholders from the African continent. We have Nigeria, Tanzania, and the Gambia representing for you for the next 25 minutes. So my name is Thandi Duani. I'm a Danish South African. I'm currently in Copenhagen. I am the advisor to the board and former CEO of Impact Hub Johannesburg. Our main kind of task is to support impact startups around South Africa, but also more broadly in Sub-Saharan Africa. I'm also heading the strategic partnerships of a small startup called Girls Are Awesome, where I work more broadly to amplify and elevate female representations in various fields to reap the benefits of more women in leadership, in the media, in tech, in sports, and entrepreneurship. So we'll be talking about the overall theme of Africa's complex and diverse fintech ecosystem, and what are some of the differences and what kind of unites the continent. So I want to allow our amazing panelists to introduce themselves before we dig into a conversation. So Jay, take it away.
Thank you, Thandi, and thanks to the FinTech Week team for putting together such a fantastic set of sessions. I'll briefly introduce Paga and myself. I'm Jay Alabraba. I'm a co-founder of Paga, and I lead business development for the company. Paga is a payments and digital financial service company. We've been operating for about 10 years now. First of all, in Nigeria, which is the first market we've rolled out in. We're currently in the process of launching in 2 other markets, which hope I get a chance to talk about as we go along. With Paga, customers are able to do all the basic financial transactions that they need just to stay in touch with, just to keep life going, basically wherever they are, right? Everything from money transfers, both international and domestic remittances, bill payments, airtime top-up, etc. And we also offer a variety of digital financial services, some of which are yet to launch, but we're doing this in collaboration with banks and other financial institutions, stuff like savings, credit, insurance, etc. So think about Paga as a one-stop shop sort of financial services provider that is available to the mass market and people at every other cadre of society.
Thank you so much, Jay. Over to you, Fatima.
Hi, everyone. My name is Fatima Tambajang. Similar to Thandi, I'm also Danish and Gambian. I've been in Ghana for the past 5 years, where I've worked in the fintech and startup ecosystem. I currently work with Mazuma, which is a fintech company, and we were the first in Ghana back in 2015 to achieve financial operability. And similar to Paga, we also do mobile top-ups. And then on our B2B, we work with fintechs such as World Remit, and we're their last leg when it comes to disseminating remittances. And our target audience is the unbanked, as in our market, majority people don't have bank accounts. So yeah, and I do business development. So again, very similar to Jay.
Very interesting. Thank you, Fatima. Ferdinand, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, my name is Ferdinand, and I'm the founder of Growth Fund. So we're a Danish company based here in Copenhagen, but operates mainly in Africa. So we provide funding for Facebook and Google advertising, managed by a certified expert. So that's mainly targeted the small business owner that cannot afford cannot get a bank loan. It's targeted the e-commerce shop, or even the more hardcore tech startup. So instead of them going out either getting a bank or microloan or getting VC funding, they can apply for funding as us, and we provide the credit. 80% goes to Facebook and Google, and 20% goes to a Facebook expert. We raised capital from UN, which has given a kind of a flexibility, but it's in terms of what kind of companies we could fund. But on the other hand, we've been tied up to different African markets and to Palestine even. So we've had some kind of experience on different African markets.
Thank you so much, Ferdinand. And last but not least, Sean.
Yeah, Sean is my name. I'm the resource manager of Fintech Association of Nigeria. The association is just an enabler in the fintech space in Nigeria. We are the umbrella body for those playing in the financial technology sector. Happy to note that Paga is also a member of the association. And what are we doing? We are basically trying to advocate around regulatory reforms, around funding, around skills acquisition, all that can further scale the growth of fintech and impact in Nigeria. And we are the founding member of Africa Fintech Network, the premier national fintech association in Africa, and we founded Africa Fintech Network that has 32 national fintech associations as member, and we are using that as well to scale growth, development, impact across the continent. Thank you for having me on this event.
Thank you so much, everyone. So during our prep call, we talked a little bit about that people in the audience might be interested in learning more about, like, broadly, what does it mean to be a startup or an entrepreneur in sub-Saharan Africa. There's a lot of stereotyping in regards to our work on the continent. We had text payment solutions before smartphone technology, and we had money transfers before, for example, the Danish mobile pay app. So what is it like to be an entrepreneur in sub-Saharan Africa, and what are the current developments in the fintech sector where you're at? Maybe you want to start, Fatima?
So yeah, actually, ironically, as I mentioned, I'm in Berlin and I'm currently working on an accelerator for African entrepreneurs. And some of the reemerging themes that I've come across is, like, while there is a lot of opportunity, because there's a lot of market and underdevelopment, access to funding still remains number one barrier. And then also in terms of capacity building. So you have a lot of entrepreneurs who have great products, but they don't have the best skills or tools when it comes to knowing how to market or position what they're selling. So that's more or less, in a nutshell, the main issues that I've seen in, like, the 500 entrepreneurs we've been screening for this program.
Wow, that's amazing. And you, Jay?
I think Fatima hit the nail on the head on several points there. I will repeat the point that, you're working on the continent, you can definitely see a tremendous market opportunity, not only because the populations are large, but also the need is very great, right? Because infrastructural stuff just force a situation where, you have to find innovative solutions to problems. I would say a couple other challenges beyond perhaps funding, talent, finding talent to do things that are critical for the business. Particularly in the highly specialized areas, things like design and perhaps the software engineering, etc. Yeah. They are available. The big challenge here is that for the best candidates, we are competing with, organizations like ours are competing with the big banks or the telcos, etc., who may pay higher salaries or for whatever reason may be more commercially, interesting to these candidates. So I think, in a very weird way, this experience with the COVID lockdown has shown us that the market for this talent, or the sourcing of this talent, could go beyond our borders, right? There's possibility that wherever we can, find people wherever you can. So I think, as time evolves, a lot of these things are being resolved. Another challenge, again, goes back to the basic infrastructure. There's a lot of costs that, folks in other markets may take for granted. Things like knowing that there's always going to be power to run your generators or or water supply to the toilets at your office. I mean, these are things that we actually worry about on a weekly basis. Like, we want to make sure there's water supply. We want to make sure that the generator is geared up, ready to provide power when things are a challenge. But thirdly, and I think this is a double-edged sword, is that things are evolving very quickly in different markets. So even the regulators in our markets are learning as they go along, right? I would say in Nigeria, knock on wood, we're blessed with a regulator who not only, I guess, has foreseen several things, so has plans in that sense, but is also very listening. And so responsive to changes as they happen and as suggestions come from the market. Not everything we want we get, but as suggestions come from the market, at least they're listening and there's a dialogue around it. I think that's critical for growth.
Thank you so much, Jay. And over to you, Ferdinand. I think you can also speak a little bit about skills and funding, gaps, which is mainly the area that you're in.
Yeah, for sure. So of course, the lack of access to capital, that's of course like a huge problem. It's mostly for the SMEs, like a credit gap in the trillions of dollars. So it's even small businesses that like either operate in cash or they don't have the credit history in order to get a loan. So that's hampering growth. It's not providing the jobs which is required to get people out of poverty. So of course that's something we're trying to tackle. But of course the problem will always be that there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of risk, etc. So I think what the valuable part in terms of the fintech is that they're reducing the risk. So we rely extensively on data from Facebook, rely on from other fintech companies where the more data we can get, the more we can get the risk down, and the more people are willing to invest essentially. And I think that's it's not only on the individual freelancer or individual company, it's as much on the individual country, and it's their role to attract capital, exactly as we're doing here with the fintech hub in Denmark, where we as either as a city or as a country try to attract capital in order to provide funding for the companies. So it's a huge area to tackle, and I don't think it's going to be solved within the next couple of years. But I think it's a course worth fighting for all the fintech startups.
Right. Thank you so much, Ferdinand. And you, Sean, how do you see the developments in the fintech sector from where you're at?
Yeah. You know what? I'm not an entrepreneur, but I know there is a very strong need for collaboration in this space. There is a need for shared resource and all that. There is a need to leverage. We've talked, open banking, open APIs has become a norm nowadays, and it's something that we strongly believe for us to get to the next phase of growth, we need to leverage individual advantages. We need to leverage that, and for us, that what we are basically doing is just to then see how we can really bring this to the fore. How can we advocate around things that binds all of us together? For instance, regulation is common to all. Jay mentioned regulation. Fatima talked about funding. Funding is something. She talks about skill set. It's something, and we've seen massive exodus of skill from the continent to other continents. So, and we must all collaborate to see how we can retain our skills, our talent here, and how we can also, sort of grow talent right from school. And two things we are doing in this front. We recently set up a forum called Rejuvenator Forum. That forum brings together representatives of each regulatory agency in Nigeria, and they are engaging with innovators, saying what are the challenges, how can we co-create solutions to these challenges. Again, we also set up a team called Fintech Advisory Team, which is developing strategy for local funding. Much of the funds that have supported fintech growth in Nigeria are from abroad. And I know most fintechs in Nigeria, appreciate foreign funds compared to local funds. And we've set up this team to help us develop a strategy that can harmonize, harness, and utilize local funding sources so that various stages of development across the sector can be supported. Most funders will only fund certain series I think maybe B, C, and all that, but nobody's looking at ideation stage, nobody's looking at pre-seed stage and all that. So we are doing all of this, and we also to touch on data. Data is a big issue across the continent. And for us, we don't want to continue to amplify the challenges. We recently entered into partnership with Ernst & Young and working on industry map for Nigeria. And there are a lot of strategies around this to making sure data is available for investors, for whoever want to work in Nigeria, so that you are able to make informed decisions and we can accelerate growth. These are just some of the few things we are doing to enable growth in Nigeria. And most of the things we are also doing have been replicated at the African Fintech Network across other nations in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. We really also in Impact Hub networks have seen kind of the gaps in actually building the ecosystems and starting early, having that entrepreneurial mindset and bridging the funding gap with ideation stage. I really see that as a huge problematic. But we also talked a little bit about, what unifies the continent and all the commonalities, but it quickly came around to all the differences in the markets. And as I see it, for example, the African Union opening up markets for trade, how would that, the regulations and the different, when you work in Nigeria, for example, you want to cross over to Ghana or to the Gambia, to South Africa, whatever. How do you see this affecting your work if the African Union chooses to open up for trade? I don't know if anybody wants to answer this question. You can just jump in.
Sure.
Anyway, okay, go, Fatima.
Fatima, go ahead.
The Secretariat just opened in Ghana, and I hate to be pessimistic. I think it's just a realist comment that a lot of us in this space have had is whether after or the AU goes ahead, people are still going to do business, because a lot of it is rhetoric. The reality is very different. There's three of us are from West Africa, and we know that the ECOWAS currency has been in talks for 10 years and nothing has come out. So I think for entrepreneurs to slow down or to wait for this thing to be implemented in order for trade to be smoother, it's really not conducive. So I think entrepreneurs are just going ahead. They're not really waiting for it. That's been my observation and the comments that I've heard regarding the setup of it.
Thank you, Fatima. Jay, you wanted to say something? You were nodding kind of...
I want to agree with Fatima, first of all, that that stuff is going on, right? It's always been going on, and it will continue to go on. But here's the fact also is that there is very little, I'll say relative compared to, trade with, other continents linked to the Western market. There's very, very little trade across African countries. And this goes across the board, right? The synergies are very limited. I'm here in Nigeria. Next door, we have Cameroon, we have, Benin Republic, nearby Togo and Ghana. And, thinking about even building sort of a payments ecosystem across that path, yes, there's going to be value, but it is not as significant as tackling certain other big markets or even the remittances opportunity from Western markets, right? So it's still critical. It's going on informally, whether we like it or not. Of optimism around the what the African Union is pushing. It's going a bit slow. To Fatima's point, even the recent discussions with the Francophone West Africa country, the common currency, I think has been sidelined now formally. That's what I read. So we're paying attention. I think perhaps the solutions that will come out of the African Union initiatives around, simplifying cross-border transfers for workers from one country to easily find jobs or start up businesses in other countries, I think will definitely help. But we're not holding our breath in that sense.
Yeah. If I can just amplify what Jay just said, I think the one of the challenges with the initiatives from AU ECOWAS is the fact that they are not heavily leveraging technology. They are not factoring technology as the core of what they are doing. And we know that what can really take us to the nearest future in the fastest possible time is technology. Much of these things are still brick and mortar approaches and all that. And until we begin to look at technology as the key enabling factor, we will really not move at the pace we will expect. So, and for us, again, We really don't like talking about the challenges. We always like to amplify the solutions. And that's why we founded this Africa FinTech Network, saying, okay, if I have a member in Egypt, I have a member in South Africa, and we are touching base on a regular basis, that can help us in solving some of these cross-border challenges and fast-track cross-border trade, cross-border transfer of solutions and innovations. And again, we've seen what ECOWAS you have done around AFCTA, which we know is still neither here nor there. So, and basically, again, we are also bringing together stakeholders at National FinTech Conference coming up in October, saying, can we really see the place of technology in the AFCTA? Technology has to play a prominent role. Until we do that, we will still continue to just be beating about the bush and nothing will really happen in terms of impact and transformation. Technology brings about impact, it brings about transformation. Until we make that as a core policy, we will not really move at the pace we want. Thank you.
Ferdinand, do you want to add to that conversation?
Just that, of course, there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of local regulations that hampers a lot of companies from moving from one market to another. But there are also like a lot of things that are like a lot of standardization happening on the web and in the cloud. And I think those standardizations has huge benefits for Africa, because if you can leverage those and if companies can take advantage of those standards that are developing in the cloud, like that's a huge opportunity to disrupt the local market if you have the patience in terms of waiting until kind of everything is mature.
Can it also have something to do with all of you were talking about kind of the non-bankable and the secondary economy? Can the funding of these areas, can it also be related to the the notion that it's a very unstable market in terms of people's access to data and not having a bank account or a financial history and all those things? And for example, Fatima, I know you work with cryptocurrency, for example. Is that a way that we can create more accountability in that sense, you think?
Yes and no. So I think the first question you asked, so for example, MTN in Ghana, what they do is people might not have financial histories, but everybody has a mobile number. So if you maybe lend 10 cedis, which is like maybe €2, and you don't pay it back, whenever you top up your mobile phone just to make a call, they'll deduct it from that. And everybody needs to use a phone. And you can't really run away from the system, because in Ghana, in order to start to get a SIM card, you need to take your passport or your voter's ID or some sort of identification. So that's just to like tackle that. In terms of cryptocurrency, I do think, in general, it's still a very unregulated market. It's still very new. And even on the continent as well, people are still like wrapping their heads around it. So I do think it's going to take a couple of years, maybe even a decade, for it to catch up on. Thank you, Fatima.
I can piggyback on Fatima's comments, especially around cryptocurrency. It's an open secret that the growth in use of cryptocurrency and adoption is very, very rapid, right? It's for very, very interesting use cases, especially cross-border transfers, folks in African countries paying suppliers in other markets, including China. But even funding like betting wallets, which is another very big business area as well. In Nigeria, quite visibly, the central bank has set an edict that says, financial institutions here cannot hold or trade cryptocurrencies. But with looking around, you can see the entire market doing this, right? Because there's difficulty finding FX to make your foreign payments, or it's a place to store value. So I think this, again, this is another one of those places where we can say all we want to say, but it's happening anyway. And at some point, regulation should catch up with the realities of the market.
Yeah, I don't know if we can just add to it. I think one of the major challenges with crypto and virtual assets is regulation. But I can clearly say the regulators are now moving in the right direction here in Nigeria. Yesterday, the Securities and Exchange Commission clearly releases a regulation that classifies crypto as an asset. And so that will really open up a lot of things around crypto adoption acceptance in the space. So we can see a lot of movement in Nigeria, especially the steps Securities and Exchange Commission has taken. It's not a giant one that will really open further doors to crypto adoption and what we can further do with blockchain. So regulation is moving at a good pace in Nigeria, and we can see that the Securities and Exchange Commission is taking the lead around this, especially around virtual currency. Thank you.
So the way I also see there's a real lack of ecosystem building. How do you what would be the prescription of something successful? I mean, you talked about the lack of data and the lack of skills. I mean, what do we need to build a real ecosystem around fintech solutions and financial literacy, for example?
Well, if I should go first, based on my experience in this space, I will mention again, collaboration is key, because we don't know organization has all the resources. So we have to leverage our individual competencies, strengths, and advantages to be able to do this. For instance, we are starting a program for students, which is meant to train them on digital education and prepare them for future work. We can only do that. We need organizations to fund it, because we are an NGO. So you see some pockets of collaboration here and there, but I think collaboration is key, to achieving this. Thank you.
Just piggybacking off what James said, but collaboration doesn't necessarily happen organically in the African market. That's been my observation. You do need key players or key individuals who are fostering those deals and making it clear what the big goal is, or like, okay, we can make more money, then I'm sure people will work together. But people tend to work in silos a lot in African markets. You hear it when you go to Lagos, when you go to Nairobi, if you're in Accra, if you're in South Africa, and that really is the challenge. So in Kenya, there is a little bit of controversy happening that a lot of American founders have actually been moving to Kenya and then raising money. But when they raise this money, they're doing it as a unit of people. Whereas on our side of town, we don't work like that. But yeah, I mean, it varies. We'd say Nigerians are better at collaborating compared to Ghanaians. And so, things are changing. Twitter is a great place. You see really great dialogues and good people supporting one another. So yeah, it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
I'll add.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's critical as well. Something very foundational, honestly, to build anything that any of us is speaking about is identity. And this is basically being able to uniquely identify individuals so that, when they take loans or they do transfers or, you're going to meet compliance, you know who you're talking to. And really, that has to come with the strong support of the government agencies at the state or federal levels. It has to start there. So, collaboration has to include working with a government who is open and willing to create the enabling environment. Individual companies may do some work, but I think it's collectives like Fintech, NGR, or ALMPO, which is in Nigeria, is the Association of Licensed Mobile Payments Operators. Working together, again, we can push these agendas to make things happen quicker.
So what's a recipe to start collaborating in your view? If this is what it takes, then how can we push that forward?
So there has to be a willingness, right? And then, create that forum for the engagement. And I think all these are opportunities. I've made note here. Ferdinand, I now remember from previous emails we have exchanged. Fatima, I haven't met before. Sheon, I know. But these are people that I can reach out to as well to say, let's figure out, how we keep this dialogue going and pull our resources together. I mean, it starts with, right? Organizations are soulless in their own way. But the dialogue and the forum for the dialogue has to be there.
Yeah, just to then have that in Nigeria, the FinTech Association has about 160 organizations that are members, and that tells you how willing people are willing here to collaborate. So you have about 160 corporate organizations across 15 sectors dominated by FinTechs themselves. So, and it's not difficult around here to do that. Of course, it was at the beginning, but as the value begins to come to the fore, we then see people willing to join to work with one another, and then I think our ecosystem is better off for it.
Thank you so much, guys. I think we are running out of time. I saw somebody pop into a session, but thank you for creating this platform. I think it's definitely a way we can start collaborating. Now you know each other, and we can continue the journey from here. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Tandy, again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tandy.
Thank you
Alright,
also
bye.
here from the Copenhagen Fintech Lab. That was an excellent session. I enjoyed it very much. So thank you so much for joining.